At age 87, actor Robert Wagner has been declared a person of interest in the mysterious death of his wife, legendary actress Natalie Wood.
Robert Wagner's wife, Natalie Wood, drowned, and a controversy has ensued around him. What happened? Despite Wagner's renown as the charming host of Heart to Heart, the enigma surrounding that tragic evening has cast a shadow over his accomplishments. Wagner is now 94 years old and prepared to answer the questions that have dogged him for decades. Is it possible that this adored actor was up to no good? Let's investigate the mysterious occurrences in his life and find out what happened the night his wife drowned. Thelma Hazel Alvera was a former telephone operator, and Robert John Wagner Sr. was a traveling salesman for Ford Motor Company. Wagner was born in Detroit to these parents. His older sister's name was Mary. Bel Air is a posh area in Los Angeles, so that's where the family settled. The less-than-glamorous upbringing that Wagner had did pave the way for his ultimate stardom in show business. Dreams changed drastically for Wagner when he was a youngster and completed a screen test for famous director and producer Fred Zinnemann. Despite the lack of instant recognition and success, the exam ignited Wagner's enthusiasm for acting and inspired him to pursue his aspirations. He sought out an agent, taking things even more personally. A deal with 20th Century Fox Studios, which began his acting career, was his reward for his perseverance. In addition to opening doors professionally, his tenure at the studio also exposed him to a young Natalie Wood. At the time, Wood was a famous actress, and her encounter with the adolescent Wagner changed her life. Famously, she informed her mother that she would marry him eventually since he enchanted her just being around him. Little did she know that her prophecy would be fulfilled not once, but twice during her lifetime. After achieving early success in Hollywood, Robert Wagner's career took a surprising turn with 1953's Titanic, in which he co-starred with the legendary Barbara Stanwyck. Wagner was secretly seeing Stanwyck, who was 23 years his senior, behind the scenes. Despite their closeness, studios were hesitant to promote Wagner as a main guy because of their odd relationship. He was replaced by younger performers in the cast. The collaboration that enchanted the audience was a happy accident that brought Wagner and Natalie Wood together. Wood had an extensive acting career despite being 8 years younger than Wagner, who portrayed the endearing boy next door. After their on-screen connection transferred to real life, Wagner planned a romantic proposal for Wood, a champagne-floating engagement ring and everything. Unbeknownst to them, this small act would foreshadow the tragic nautical motif that would dominate their relationship. Wagner and Wood's Hollywood affair gained fame as their love story progressed. Their picture-perfect romance drew many admirers, but underneath the surface, they were battling issues and conflicts. Their mutual love of the water deepened their bond. Wagner and Wood disregarded the cautions of others and proceeded nevertheless, oblivious to the difficulties that lay ahead. Their relationship had its share of problems and peculiarities, despite the fact that they were beautiful Hollywood stars with obvious chemistry. Wagner had a passion for sailing, which was an intriguing aspect. For their honeymoon, he had arranged for a boat ride in the Florida Keys. But there was a major hitch. Wood was deathly afraid of the dark and of deep water. Their romantic holiday is overshadowed by this concern. Everyone wanted to know more about the famed Hollywood couple Wagner and Wood. Every time they hit the road for a tour, radio stations throughout the nation would eagerly follow their every move. This sent their legion of admirers into a frenzy, and even tiny towns would see swarms of people hoping to get a sight of the stars. Critics were wary of their star power and were unable to completely back them, despite the public's adoration. In All the Fine Young Cannibals, the connection between the two actors mirrored their personal struggles and triumphs. The film was poorly received, even if the actors were famous. Their on-screen chemistry was scrutinized by critics. Despite the film's unsavory reaction, there was some silver lining. The title became the idea for the famous 1980s band, Fine Young Cannibals. Their public personas belied the reality of the fairy tale that was Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood's marriage. Their relationship started to show signs of strain as Wood's career surpassed Wagner's, despite their picture-perfect appearances on lavish boats and at prestigious gatherings. As Wood's fame skyrocketed, the pressure on Wagner's ego became obvious. But underneath the surface, the couple's union was threatened by deeper underlying difficulties. Well-known womanizer Warren Beatty was introduced to Wood through her involvement in the film Splendor in the Grass. The marriage became even more strained as rumors spread about a possible romance between Wood and Beatty. A new sensational story involving Wagner surfaced at the same time that the conjecture around Wood's suspected adultery with Beatty was gaining steam. One day, Wood's sister Lana Wood returned home to see Wagner in an awkward position with another man, according to Wood. In the conservative Hollywood of that time, Wagner's career may have been destroyed by this unexpected disclosure. Did he really want to keep his job, or was his interest in Wood really an act to cover up his opulent tastes? Who knows, but it changed him. It severed his bond with Wood. Because of all the speculation and difficulties, Wood decided not to speak out about their actual connection or Wagner's behavior. Robert Wagner began a new chapter in his life immediately after breaking up with Natalie Wood. He tied the knot with Miriam Marshall Donen in 1963. Donen was a famous actress who had parts in the energetic comedy of Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. Katie Wagner, their daughter, was born of their relationship. However, Wagner's career started to fall a year later, prompting him to seek for other chances, even if he seemed satisfied in his marriage to Donen. The ever-changing Hollywood market was a challenge for Wagner to navigate, despite his charisma and excellent looks. There weren't many leading man jobs for individuals like him, and that made him very unhappy. Bad guys, not good folks, were the focus of most of the scripts. Instead, he thought he'd try his luck with television. The role of a bright ex-con in the television series It Takes a Thief brought him renewed fame, and he played the part brilliantly. However, he was experiencing difficulties in his personal life. His 1971 divorce with Donen was final. They divorced after that. His relationship with Tina Sinatra, daughter of Frank Sinatra, began after that. They spent a lot of time together in Frank Sinatra's posh Palm Springs mansion, and he even proposed to her. However, a change occurred thereafter. Something Natalie Wood, another actress he knew, said caused him to end things with Tina. A significant shift occurred in his romantic life. But what followed stunned everyone, so it appears his destiny is interwoven with Natalie Wood's. A tornado of feelings swept over Robert Wagner as he learned about Natalie Wood's divorce. Seeing an opportunity to reunite, Wagner quickly extended an invitation to Wood to his Palm Springs home. No one knew if this offer was just for friendly conversation or if there was something more personal at play. Nobody saw what happened during Wood's Palm Springs vacation coming. In the oasis in the desert, Wagner and Wood seemed to revive their romance, and sparks flew once more. They made a daring statement by coming clean about their reunion at the 1972 Academy Awards. Many feelings were expressed in response to their reconciliation. Their June 1972 decision to embark on a particular vacation was influenced by fate nevertheless. The conventional route across the Atlantic was chosen by Wagner and Wood, sailing on the Queen Elizabeth II. Wagner was thrilled to promote his new TV movie, and the legendary Bette Davis was there as well. While out on the vast seas, they wished for a tighter connection and a rekindling of their love. Nevertheless, a negative shift occurred. Horrific storms accompanied by 70-foot seas beset Queen Elizabeth II. The 4-day storm did more to increase Natalie Wood's fear of water than to set a romantic mood. Nature may have been trying to tell them not to get back together, but Wagner and Wood persisted in finding solace in their own special way. They hid in their cabin at the height of the tempest storm. They were able to escape the mayhem outside and savor the company of one another while dining on caviar and champagne. The raging storm was either too much for them to bear, or they were too preoccupied with their own mortality to notice it. Once they reached the safety of the ground, though, Their near-death experience seems to have prompted a significant decision. Wagner and Wood shocked everyone in the UK when they decided to reaffirm their devotion to one another by renewing their vows. Perhaps they were inspired to deepen their marriage relationship by the thrill and terror they felt while at sea. Nevertheless, it appeared as though they hadn't quite grasped the gravity of their prior hardship. Their decision to tie the knot again reflected their callousness for the perils of the ocean before. This feeling was echoed by the location they chose for their second wedding, which had a breathtaking view of the ocean. It was as though they dared destiny, oblivious to the red flags that had preceded their reunion and the frightening ordeal they had endured at sea. Despite the risks associated with maritime ventures, Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood chose a maritime theme for their second wedding. Off the coast of Malibu, in a picturesque ceremony, they exchanged vows on the boat Ramblin' Rose. As the celebrations came to a close, they took a romantic trip to Catalina Island to celebrate their recommitment. Catalina Island would subsequently be connected to one of Hollywood's most intriguing mysteries, but they were unaware of this at the time. Wagner and Wood rechristened their recently purchased boat, Splendor, from Challenger, a bold gesture that sailors may see as unlucky, in homage to Wood's cherished Wordsworth poem. But for Wagner, there was a sinister undercurrent to this apparently carefree decision. Seeing the rechristened ship brought up terrible memories of Wood's alleged romance with Warren Beatty on Splendor in the Grass. Even though the previous episode was beginning to recede from her mind, Natalie Wood still felt a lingering sense of envy over their current predicament. Even though Robert Wagner's career was booming because to the success of his sitcom Heart to Heart, fresh problems arose in their marriage. Even though Wagner's connection with Stephanie Powers was all anybody could talk about, Wood's career was in freefall. The indisputable bond between Wagner and Powers captivated viewers, making it difficult to distinguish between fact and fantasy. Still, feelings even closer to home were aroused by this professional intimacy. On the set of Heart to Heart, Wood and Wagner's daughters were taken by surprise as Wood unexpectedly surprised Wagner. She and the kids would never be the same after coming onto a scenario being shot, which she had no idea was happening. Wagner moved his children to tears with his portrayal of longing during a passionate love scene with Powers. Whether it was his sincere performance or some other unspoken reality, the children's emotional reaction suggested a more nuanced dynamic between their parents. Despite her cool reaction to the situation, a whirlwind of emotions washed over Wood. Unable to shake her emotions of disappointment and betrayal, she struggled to explain Wagner's occupation to their girls. It was a watershed event that prompted serious consideration and subsequent action on Wood's part. Even if the science fiction picture Brainstorm didn't garner good reviews, Wood was fortunate enough to land a role in it with Christopher Walken and other A-listers. But as Lana, Wood's sister, hinted, Wood had a deep connection to Walken. This adoration may have played a role in Wood's 1981 Thanksgiving dinner invitation to Walken. However, this escalated an already volatile scenario during what was meant to be a tranquil vacation. When Walken showed up for Thanksgiving aboard the Splendor, their boat, things took an unexpected turn. The added scrutiny of Walken's renowned reputation may have made Wagner feel out of place as the supporting cast member. The already tense meal became even more so when Wood's involvement with Warren Beatty was brought up by the yacht's name. Avalon, California was the setting for their supper, and the waitstaff couldn't help but notice the excessive drinking. The problem wasn't only the heavy drinking, though. Rumors circulated among the waitstaff that the three of them were secretly at odds with one another. As the night progressed, Wagner's nagging anxiety foreshadowed the events that would alter the trajectory of their lives, as well as the lives of Wood and Walken. Watching the friendship that had developed between Wood and Walken during production of Brainstorm intensify as the evening progressed at the restaurant, Wagner found it increasingly difficult to suppress the rising unease he was experiencing. Wagner saw it as something that may ruin his marriage. The mixture of drunkenness and envy kept eating away at him, even if he tried to brush them off. As the three of them and Captain Davern continued to imbibe alcohol upon their return to the Splendor boat in the dinghy, the tension remained high. The events of that night were further confused by the opposing testimonies from Wagner, Walken, and Davern. Some facts aligned, while others diverged in different ways. The following day, they discovered Wood's dead corpse drifting near the little boat, approximately 1 mile from Splendor, and the awful truth set in. The results of the medical evaluation indicated that she had consumed a significant amount of alcohol and displayed minor physical injuries, suggesting that she may have been involved in a physical altercation. Attempting to board the smaller boat from the larger one, Wood drowned, which at first appeared to be a straightforward accident. However, the complexity of the case became more apparent when the investigators dug further into Natalie Wood's disappearance. Absolutely not. Robert Wagner became the center of attention as they sought answers. In his initial interviews, he reiterated this sentiment. According to him, he saw that the little boat was also missing after Wood had gone to bed early. But Wagner mentioned something new in a subsequent interview a few days later, which raised suspicions. Wagner related an extra event that occurred after Wood had gone to her room, but before he began searching for her in the second interview. Information surfaced showing that Christopher Walken had stepped out onto the deck for a little fresh air. Questions over Wagner's intentions arose as a result of this revelation. Was he trying to make it seem like Walken was the one who was under investigation, rather than himself? The official inquiry into Wood's death first pointed to an unintentional cause. Some strange facts, nevertheless, came to light, casting doubt on this idea. There were several details that raised suspicions about Wood's decision to get in a dinghy at night, one of which was her well-documented phobia of dark water and drowning. Extra abnormalities that surfaced throughout the inquiry added to the unease, suggesting a more complex and unsettling truth lurking beneath the terrible events of that night. Dr. Thomas Noguchi's involvement as coroner added another layer of mystery to the inquiry into Natalie Wood's untimely death, which was already shrouded in suspicion and rumor. Noguchi seemed to go to great lengths to downplay any suspicions of malfeasance on the side of Robert Wagner or anybody else concerned, even though there were indicators that may have indicated foul play. This included playing down details like Wood's alcohol intake and the seriousness of her injuries. Why was the coroner reluctant to investigate the possibility of foul play? Noguchi appeared to be attempting to refocus the narrative away from accusing Wagner of any wrongdoing. To better comprehend Noguchi's attitude to crucial instances, it is instructive to review his background. Note that Noguchi was previously the subject of criticism and investigation in a case involving actor William Holden's unintentional death. Specifically, he was said to have divulged too many private facts, including how drunk Holden was. Given the heightened public attention in Wood's death, Noguchi wished to steer clear of a repeat of the previous scandal. William Holden was engaged in another high-profile accident involving Stephanie Powers, a co-star of Wagner's on the popular TV show Heart to Heart. Powers was romantically linked with Wood, which added an extra layer of mystery to the story. Many were suspicious that foul play may have been involved due to the close proximity of the two incidents, which occurred within weeks of one another, and the links between the individuals involved. Wagner had to tread cautiously in the wake of both events in order to manage popular sentiment. The real causes of these tragic occurrences remained unknown, however, and questions remained unanswered as the investigations continued. Robert Wagner's actions toward Captain Dennis Davern following Natalie Wood's tragic death led many to question his intentions. Rather of allowing Davern the freedom to discuss what transpired that night, Wagner maintained a vigilant watch over him. Although Davern first resided at Wagner's residence, he quickly became used to the stringent security protocols, complete with bodyguards and alarms. People started to question Wagner's concerns about Davern presenting his side of the story after this. Wagner attempted to be cordial to Davern despite Davern's lack of enthusiasm in acting, which only served to heighten the tension. Wagner assisted Davern in landing commercial jobs and even a tiny part in Heart to Heart. Although these may have been acts of compassion on Wagner's side, his subsequent behavior caused many to doubt his genuine motives. Wagner seems to have offered Davern huge sums of money for no apparent purpose, in addition to professional chances. This was an apparent attempt to quiet him. These payments might be seen as hush money, according to Davern's associates. This would mean that Wagner knew secret knowledge and wanted to keep Davern silent. What did Davern know about Wagner that caused him to keep silent? And how far was Wagner prepared to go to make sure Davern didn't reveal anything? People began to suspect a link between Davern and Woods' untimely demise due to his peculiar conduct throughout the years. From time to time, he would hint at knowing crucial details, but then he would remain silent. Everyone was wondering whether Wagner was involved and if he was trying to intimidate or pressure Davern into staying silent because of this. Everyone began to listen to Wagner's account of that night as Davern refused to speak. His 1986 book, Heart to Heart, co-authored with Robert Wagner, detailed his perspective on the events. According to Wagner, Wood slipped from the boat as he attempted to secure a slack line on the dinghies. While trying to tie the loose rope, she tripped over the noise it made as it hit the boat, which disrupted her sleep. However, important questions about the trio's tense disagreement were neatly sidestepped by this answer. It was easy to disregard the apparent bruises on Wood's body and the accusations of flirting by Wagner. When after years of conjecture, Captain Davern chose to speak out, Wagner's narrative ran into a major roadblock. The scene on board the Splendor that night was considerably more chaotic according to Davern's testimony. As per Davern's account, the situation reached a critical point when Wagner, driven by intoxication and envy, lost control of his temper. The story goes that Wagner accused Wagner of attempting to entice Wood away and confronted him about it. Wagner hurriedly retreated to his room as Wood stomped out in frustration as the situation grew worse. Tensions on board the Splendor ship, however, were still rising, so the night was far from done. After Wood and Wagner went to their rooms, Davern said that he and Wagner kept drinking. When Wagner mentioned his plan to see Wood, the atmosphere on the boat became much darker. Wagner and Wood got into an unprecedentedly heated dispute, which he remembered clearly. The mood was incredibly chaotic, with cries and the sound of items being hurled filling the air. Davern heard someone clearly attempting to loosen the grimy lines as they tinkered with them amidst the mayhem. The fact that Wagner was visibly shaken and visibly sweating upon his return suggested that he had been in a violent confrontation. Davern, in his drunken condition, failed to completely grasp the gravity of the scenario that was developing in front of him, despite these warning signals. Rather, he persisted in imbibing with Wagner until the latter chose to revisit the subject of Wood. Worry became into dread the moment Wagner learned Wood had gone missing. Davern became involved in the hunt as well, searching the whole ship, even Wagner's quarters, with great care. Still, it was clear that Wood was not where they had expected him to be. Thus, their efforts were in vain. The fact that the dinghy had vanished added to their worries, and at 1:30 in the morning, Wagner and Davern went to sound the alarm. After seeing how dire the situation was, Davern offered some realistic suggestions to aid in the hunt. He offered scanning the surrounding water with the boat's floodlights, and even going so far as to advise starting the engine for a more thorough search. These were reasonable actions that could have prevented Wood's death. Nevertheless, Wagner's response was unexpectedly icy, failing to bolster Davern's ideas. Instead of aggressively searching for Wood, Wagner coldly disregarded them, suggesting they use the radio to get assistance and fretting over notifying neighboring farms. Davern was taken aback by Wagner's callous attitude, particularly considering the gravity of the situation. Wagner would come to profoundly regret this choice in retrospect. Everyone became even more dubious about the circumstances of Wood's death after seeing Wagner's response to her absence. The official investigation's conclusions were cast into doubt when Davern offered a fresh perspective on the events of that night in his subsequent testimony. Davern was one of almost 700 individuals who signed a petition in 2011 demanding a re-evaluation of the case, expressing their dissatisfaction. Despite Natalie Wood's death being reclassified as a consequence of drowning and other unknown reasons, Wagner remained shrouded in mystery, and it was evident that many others thought there was more to the story of Wood's tragic demise. The chief coroner of Los Angeles County, Lakshmanan Satyavegaswaran, changed Wood's cause of death from unintentional drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors in 2012 on his death certificate. According to the updated paper, the exact details of how Wood got into the water were still up in the air. Afterwards, a 10-page supplemental report to Wood's autopsy was issued by the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office on January 14, 2013, speculating that some of the bruises on her body could have happened prior to her drowning. Because of this change in classification, more questions about Robert Wagner's role in the tragedy arose. Although Wagner was not originally considered a suspect, he was suddenly named a person of interest by authorities in 2018, a long time after the crime had occurred, and he was pushed into the spotlight. The weight of this label will follow him wherever his career takes him and cast a shadow over his reputation until the truth is out. The case is still unsolved and open, according to Lieutenant Hugo Reynaga's disclosure on May 27, 2022. After Wood passed away, something unexpected happened in Wagner's personal life. Wagner began seeing Jill St. John, famous for her role as a Bond girl, less than 3 months after her death on Valentine's Day in 1982. They were both contract players for 20th Century Fox in the 50s, which is when their relationship began. What appeared to be a rebound eventually blossomed into a long-term partnership that outlasted Wagner's every prior engagement. After the terrible events that transpired at sea, it is still unclear how St. John feels about life aboard a boat, especially in light of the mystery surrounding Wood's death. They appeared in 6 films together between 1967 and 2014, with the majority of those being low-budget features. Together, they brought love letters to the stage in 1996 and were included in Heart to Heart's premiere episode. When Riley John Wagner Lewis was born in 2006 to Katie Wagner and Marshall, Wagner's first grandson, he was overjoyed. Wagner and St. John reportedly made $14 million in 2007 from the sale of their Brentwood ranchette, which they had lived in since 1983. They built a holiday house in Aspen, Colorado in 1995, and they presently live there. They also keep up a condo in Los Angeles. Resting place for Wood was Los Angeles's Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery. The public, photographers, and journalists from across the world were all instructed to remain outside the cemetery grounds for her funeral, despite their best efforts to attend. A bizarre incident from that unforgettable Thanksgiving night in 1981 adds another layer of mystery to the already circulating rumors and unanswered questions. A man's reassuring reply to a woman's frantic calls for rescue enthralled a couple who were standing near the splendor. Unaware of the seriousness of the situation, they dismissed this exchange as harmless banter. Much more emphasis has been focused on Wood's private life than on her career accomplishments. This overshadowing is a result of several factors, including her death, her marriage, divorce, and remarriage to Robert Wagner, all of which were much publicized, her associations with several 1960s actors, her mental health issues, and her strained relationship with her mother. The focus on her passing and the subsequent conjecture, according to her daughter Natasha Gregson Wagner, has obscured her genuine achievements and identity. Finished watching the video? To see more like this, please hit the bell icon and give it a thumbs up.